Solon was calm and composed. No matter what the opponent's plans were, they should have been ruined. In fact, they probably felt like committing suicide now. "Boss, they are still conducting research," said the staff with a smile on his face. "Prepare to send out the video analysis," said Solon as he nodded his head. At this moment, he seemed both powerful and imposing. Slow-motion videos could allow one to see the action, while the analysis videos broke down the moves from a technical perspective. 2 matches and 4 highlights. The jungle scamper had blown away Zhao jungle scamper in just one encounter. The arced gun and the homing gun were simply model education materials for the use of the electric javelin. Honestly speaking, even the immortal barbarians wouldn't be able to do this. This complete and unreasonable dominance over the opponent was achieved through pure technique. To defeat IQ suppression at just the right time was the truly exquisite calculation on Skeleton's side. From the timer shown on the analytic video, if he was just late by the slightest bit, IQ suppression would have completed recharging his energy shield and would have rendered this javelin shot completely useless. The whole process was completed in one fell swoop. The explosion at the energy supply station was especially visually shocking. Although it was just the showing of the analytic video, the cheering was unabated. Whenever the jungle scamper's javelin was thrown out, there would be instant cheering throughout the audience. This was a technique that made the opponent feel despair while making supporters go into a frenzy. Of which, such a shocking and despairing feeling was especially strong for the instant critical hit. If this was considered crazy, the second round was even crazier. This was because the level of passion could no longer be described with words. A counterattack in desperate times against all odds. One should note that this wasn't just an individual battle, but one where there was a need to drive your teammate. To be able to operate the Hammerstone gravitational system continuously could only be described as amazing. Zhao Rang would most probably be speechless. Prince did not even make the individual ranking list on major CT areas, and yet he was beaten badly by him 2 consecutive times. If one considered the drivers for the comeback to be having a broad view on the situation and accurate commanding, then that awesome block could be attributed to extreme control of the mech. Multi-dimensional analyses had analyzed the angle and force of the Overlord and the necessary things required for being able to take such a force. Chen Shu had used the most standard space mechanics theory to analyze the entire process. It was now that people realized that at that very moment, the Gold Guardian had executed a stunning move. Although there was guidance from the Hammerstone gravitational system, the force of the impact would be still too strong and one would not be able to take the impact. The step back by the Gold Guardian followed by the activation of the force field and instantaneous redirection was completed in one move. From the paused screen's angle, it was the exact moment just before the impact with the Overlord mech. If he was just a little quicker, he would have been blown to pieces, while if he was a little slower, he would have also been blown to pieces as there wasn't enough angle to disperse the force. It was just right, and Zhao Rang was the unlucky one this time. This resulted in many little kids who wished to imitate the move to feel despair. Come on, was the success rate even 1 in 10,000 tries? How long would one need to train and practice to be able to pull it off once? Although there was difficulty, the broad audience of CT enthusiasts couldn't resist their love for a good show. One could only say that all moves had a counter, but who would have thought of it? Who could have done it? It was likely that even the designers of the Overlord mech couldn't have thought that their cannon could be countered in such a way. Zhao Rang and his group were also looking at the analytic video in a daze. At their level, they were certain that this wasn't a problem with the probability, but with the feeling. Many times, many perfect moves were responses to a situation. To get inspiration occasionally was possible, but to be able to do so consciously was extremely difficult. Even if Skeleton was to try it again, he might not be able to replicate it. But the fact was that they were defeated badly. It seemed that the mission was going to fail this time as the strength of the opponent was clearly beyond their control. What do we do now? IQ suppression felt a little helpless. The problem now wasn't about winning or losing, but whether they were going to continue with the last match. It would be even more shameful to retreat without a battle in front of such a large audience. Forget it, I will give my all in the final match, said Solo Wind. He still had some thoughts. He felt that he had lost his previous match due to a technical knockout. He wasn't able to bring out the Slayer's full potential and was still hiding a killer move. The others looked at one another. Since Solo Wind was willing, there was no one that would object to it. The fifth and deciding match was starting. A 1v1 match. Skeleton vs Solo Wind. This little brother from Locke has commendable courage. He actually did ask for a 1v1 match. Yeah, he seems to have mistaken one thing. The scariest thing about Skeleton is not a team battle but a solo battle. Where did he get his confidence from? Not to mention the audience, even Solon was curious. How would he still dare to fight? Solo Wind was not bothered by it and opened up the field for a city battle. After which, he chose to forbid the use of the War God number 1, the Jungle Scamper, and the Gold Guardian, leaving only the Hercules. Using the Hercules in a city battle was clearly not possible, not even when one had great abilities. Even though Skeleton's revolving shovel was strong, one would just needed to use the laser gun and engage him from range. Even though he was facing numerous insults, Solo Wind was calm. This was allowed in the rules. One player could choose to forbid the use of 3 mecha and the other could also forbid the opponent from using 3 mecha. One would need to use his intelligence in a battle, and it was a competition of the depth of one's intelligence. As the time passed, Skeleton did not forbid the opponent from using any mecha. It was then that everyone noticed that Skeleton had never forbidden his opponents from using any mech. It was as though he was not afraid of anything. What a joke. Wang Jung couldn't wait to showcase all his techniques. Solo Wind chose the Slayer Type 3 without any hesitation. This was what he was best at. However, it was because of this that he suddenly felt that something wasn't right as he did not have anything to fall back on. Could it be? When Skeleton's choice fell on the Slayer Type 3, everyone let out sounds of cheers. Slayer against Slayer. Zha Rang and the rest looked at one another, not knowing what to do. Was there really such a person in this world? He could choose close combat, support, and could still use such a strong attacking style mech? Solon's men were already familiar with the routine and added the announcement in the first instant. Do you want to witness Skeleton's massacre of the opponent? The countdown of 2 minutes starts now. Slayer was the main mech for the Arbiter Republic and it used high frequency and powerful laser shots paired with a high mobility to fight. This type of mech wasn't for sniping but was a multi-terrain mech specializing in the mid to close range combat. Combining violent attacks and speed into one mech, he would still have to be careful of the ambush of other close combat mechs. Once the opponent got too close, its strength would not be able to be fully utilized. After all, this wasn't a close combat mech, and controlling the distance was of utmost importance. Basically, as long as one could control the distance between opponents well, one would be victorious. The people of Arbiter preferred simple and violent ways of fighting to flashy and unpractical fighting styles. In their design of the mech, they had incorporated these concepts to directly exterminating the opponent. This wasn't about the victory. Everyone was more interested in seeing how well Skeleton utilized the abilities of this type of mech. The match began. 2 Slayers appeared in the middle of the city. Solo Wind was already moving ahead, while Skeleton was still remaining quiet. As the Slayers started moving around slowly, a sudden burst of movement was made. Wang Jung couldn't help but sigh. Good stuff. This type of mech required one to possess strong control, as it possessed strong burst capabilities. There was emphasis on improving performance in this aspect. The speed in short-distance movement was beneficial for chasing and getting out of a war zone. It could be said that this mech in the hands of a capable pilot would be considered a massacre machine. For the laser gun, it was the more unique magnetic storm laser gun. The destructive force and frequencies of fire were strengthened, but the area of effect was relatively smaller. There was a high requirement for high accuracy, which was similar to the unique points of a sniper, but at such a distance, it would seem to be nondescript. However, it was also because of this that it gave many excellent pilots the room to perform. It could be said that this type of mech required more from the pilot than other ordinary mechs. The main features of this mech, especially so for the high-frequency magnetic storm laser gun, were briefly mentioned by Chen Shu. Consecutive lunges forward and the random shots of the laser gun were signs that Skeleton was getting acclimated to the tempo of the mech, and such a sight was no longer something new to the audience. If he could adapt to the Hercules, this type of mech would definitely not be a problem. The only difficulty would be if he was able to exert the full capabilities of the mech. This type of mech was considered to be rather multi-terrain and would require some time before anyone could get used to it. As the distance between the two were getting smaller, the radar showed that the success of city battle lay on exploiting the use of buildings to maximize advantages. This would be dependent on their reactions, and there was no doubt that this was the best place for the Slayer to perform. The two of them jumped from the back of the building instantly. With a distance of just 20 meters, lasers were fired instantly with their sounds echoing throughout as they moved to the opposite sides of the building at the same time. It was apparent that they were trying to find out and understand their opponent's distance and reaction speed. Solo Wind wanted to control the tempo of the battle and made his way out once again. He went for Skeleton Slayer directly. After another round of intense shooting, Skeleton Slayer moved to hide behind the back of the building. Solo Wind had grasped this point keenly and applied non-stop pressure on Skeleton. This resulted in a situation where one party was constantly trying to attack while the other party had to constantly run and hide. Solo Wind had an overwhelming advantage in the understanding of the Slayer. This was due to his higher accuracy. It was hard to determine if anyone had an advantage in the mobility of the mecha. However, it was clear that Solo Wind had higher accuracy in the use of the magnetic storm laser gun. This resulted in higher stress on Skeleton, who had no choice but to make use of the building to hide and dodge. The hardest part about this mech was the magnetic storm laser gun that had been specially made for the Slayer. One had to adjust to the movement of the mech while compensating for the recoil of the gun. The situation was beyond anyone's expectations. One would expect Skeleton to have an overwhelming advantage, but it was actually not the case. Skeleton had no problem controlling Slayer, demonstrating his strong ability to adapt. However, he's trying to grasp Solo Wind's tempo to use it to his advantage, but it's a pity that learning on the job will not be enough to defeat the opponent. The people from Locke's research into machines is much better, so it can't be impossible. It is only a matter of time before victory is achieved. Everyone could see what was happening. Although the two of them had similar attack patterns, Solo Wind's attacks were more efficient, and this allowed him to seize control of the situation. If not for the use of buildings as shields, Skeleton would likely not have been able to last till now. Old Deer looked calmly at the situation. There was probably no one who knew Skeleton better. Skeleton's Slayer was improving bit by bit at an amazing pace. He was acclimating to the machine while also adapting to the opponent's attack patterns and tempo. On the other side, Solo Wind's teammates were cheering for him. This was the fifth and deciding round. Although they were losing badly initially, as long as they achieved victory in the end, a win was still a win. Solo Wind had also discovered that the opponent was not omnipotent. If he had known about it, he would not have chosen a city battle, which gave the opponent an opportunity to delay. Skeleton, I thought you were good at fighting. If you have the abilities, face me one-on-one, growled Solo Wind. Wang Jung naturally did not reply. He had not gotten used to the magnetic storm laser gun of the Slayer. If he was to face it directly, it would be difficult to determine who would emerge victorious. Is there a problem with his brain? Why would I fight the way he wants me to? Yeah, this are hard. Although everyone was grumbling like this, they really hoped that Skeleton would appear out of nowhere and beat the crap out of the opponent. However, this was obviously not realistic. The opponent's strength was not a bluff. There weren't any flaws from his movement to his attacks, and he was good at controlling the distance between them. Knowing that Skeleton had lots of tricks up his sleeve in close combat, he did not give him any chances. Either continue to flee or face me one-on-one. The people from Locke really do have some skills. This type of attack would really make anyone feel helpless. Why not just switch on the energy shield and beat the crap out of the opponent? Considering Solo Wind's strength, if he got countered, he would not be able to come out on top. This applied to both parties, and all this would now depend on who would be able to strike first. Skeleton was able to keep up with the tempo of operating the machine now. However, he still lacked some understanding of the machine, and this would give Solo Wind the advantage. Honestly speaking, if not for the pressure caused by the previous two matches, Solo Wind might have had the chance to knock out his opponent. However, he was being overly cautious and was willing to give up some minor opportunities in order to pursue a stable and safe strategy. There was another exchange of blows, but no one had switched on their energy shield. They had achieved their most agile state. This was obviously a show of confidence. Both parties were having a battle of the minds. Whoever switched on their energy shield first would have admitted that they were no match for the other party. This would cause them to be unlikely be able to overwhelm the other in the subsequent attacks. Solo Wind was not panicking. He was excited like a hunter with eyes on his prey, waiting patiently for an opportunity. Slayer did not depend on speed but accuracy. One chance was enough to defeat the opponent. Not good. The audience had an overview of the entire field. The map of a city battle had its ends. As long as one could control their attacks, they would be able to force the other party to a dead end. Currently, Skeleton was being forced into a dead end by Solo Wind. Numerous viewers were waiting for this moment and were feeling a little nervous. Having witnessed a wild opening, would it just end like this? Wang Zheng could not have a direct confrontation. His ability to adapt was considered to be extremely strong. However, his understanding of the Slayer was slightly weaker than that of his opponent. Given normal circumstances, the chances of winning were at most 50%. Therefore, he would have to wait for a good opportunity. At the same time, he wanted to verify if what Chen Shu said was right. Death Valley. The last area of the map had a little breathing space. There was no option other than to fight now. It was 3 seconds to the final battle between the two Slayers. 3, 2, 1. In an instant, the two Slayers appeared in the same space. Magnetic storm laser beams were fired. Both parties had to execute stunning moves, changing their positions and avoiding the attacks of the other party. The audience could see that the two machines were constantly moving at extreme speeds. This was the result of everyday training. Solo Wind's leg muscles were stronger than those of most people as a result of constant training. But how could the B opponent able to execute such consistent attacks? As both parties were moving closer and closer to each other, dodging had become more dangerous. Who would choose to switch on the energy shield first? 15 meters apart, the two Slayers had just completed their actions and had taken aim at one another at almost the same time. With similar abilities, this distance was one where no actions would allow either party to be able to dodge. After all, this was the unique point of the Slayer, and it was to counter the highly mobile machines. With magnetic storm laser beams aimed at each other, no one had the nerve to fire first. It was as though all breathing had stopped. Solo Wind knew clearly that this was the best condition for him after being stimulated by the opponent into a mysterious state of extreme focus. Finally, energy was gathering on Solo Wind's magnetic laser beam gun. At this moment, Skeleton had no choice but to switch on his energy shield as he was a step slower. Boom! Boom boom boom! Slayer hit the energy shield fiercely, shattering it. Once locked in by Slayer's consecutive attacks, it would be hard to hide. Wang Zheng tried his best to dodge. Energy was gathering on the magnetic storm laser gun, but there was no immediate retaliation. The energy of the energy shield was depleting rapidly. After 5 shots, the energy remaining was less than 5%. 1 shot at the minimum and 2 shots at the maximum before death was inevitable. This was at the stage of despair. Solo Wind still had an energy shield full with energy. At this moment, Solo Wind felt like something was wrong. His consecutive attacks resulted in the need for magnetic storm laser gun to reload. Although the time required was extremely short, the opponent was also a Slayer. Without delay, he switched on the energy shield. He was very sure that as long as he could stop a round of attacks from the opponent, he would be able to achieve victory. This was an advantage. He could do whatever the other party could do. There was no way the opponent could break through his energy shield. This was his understanding about the machine. At this instant, Skeleton's energy disappeared as the last 5% of energy were switched off. Skeleton's Slayer suddenly rushed forward towards the energy shield of Solo Wind. Boom! Another round of stunning skills and shots. The third set of moves were followed by a forward movement and a shot. It was obvious that the frequency of fire and the reload of the magnetic storm laser gun needed to be faster. Solo Wind felt the fierce impact on his machine, but it was no big deal. Even if he had to take an increased number of shots, his energy shield still had an advantage. As the opponent approached, he would control the mech and retreat backwards. All it would take was at most 2 more rounds before the opponent's magnetic laser gun would enter the same state where there would be a temporary reload period. That would be the best time for a counterattack. The energy shield was still left with 30%. Boom. The fourth shot. Everyone let out a sigh of lament. Skeleton had too many perspectives to consider, but how could he have made such a mistake? Everyone knew that mid-range combat could deliver the largest damage. With the accuracy of Skeleton, it would be achievable. Solo Wind was able to do it some moments ago, which was the reason why Skeleton's Slayer was left with a thin layer of energy shield. And this. The last shot. Skeleton's Slayer was maneuvered strongly and it moved forward suddenly, followed by a somersault, with magnetic storm laser beams flashing in every direction. Boom. Solo Wind felt a huge amount of energy approaching him and then his machine was blasted away. Boom. Solo Wind's Slayer was smashed onto the wall. However, the energy shield still had approximately 10% left. Go and die, Solo Wind growled while trying to control the machine. Everyone felt despair. At this moment, Skeleton's magnetic laser was charging at a noticeably slower rate just like the previous Slayer. The differences between a team battle and an individual battle were with the details. This was because no one could share the load. This was all about understanding. Old Deer clenched his fist tightly. You brat, when it was time to lose, he didn't. This was not the right time for him to lose. However, Yao Ailun stared intensely. It cannot be, it cannot be, it cannot be true. Oh, God, this is the magnetic shock effect. Solo Wind was frozen in an instant as he lost control of the mech. A full second had passed. The opposite Slayer was in no hurry and took direct aim at him. Boom, boom, boom. 3 consecutive normal direct attacks. The energy shield shattered like the petals of a flower. A sea of light appeared in front of Solo Wind. Victory for Skeleton. The whole crowd went silent. No one knew what had happened. Defeat was clear and imminent. Did Solo Wind intentionally take it easy? Solo, what are you doing? Why didn't you just kill him? Zarang growled. Just when they saw the faint light of success, they were met with destruction. What's the situation? Were you bribed and purposely lost at the most crucial moment? Not to mention others, even Solo Wind's teammates were enraged. How could he stand there and not move when he could clearly fire? Solo Wind was dumbfounded. Magnetic shock effect, what luck. He obviously did not hear what his teammates were talking about. This was clearly a blow to him. That was so cruel. From the broadcast room, Solo Wind's uncontrollable screams were spreading out. On Earth, Chen Shu bounced up immediately. Ha 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 ha, my conjectures turned out to be true. Magnetic shock effect, muahaha. Old Deer took a glance at Yao Ailun, who was at his side. Frankly speaking, he had always felt that the reason why this young brat was able to sit here were because of the skeleton core, because this was just a marketing strategy of Solon. However, he had just said a word that even he could not understand. Viewers, let me provide a rough explanation of what happened. We have the slow motion playback now. Did you see it? The first, second, and third shots were from 3 different directions at different angles. This was not aligned with the theory of concentrated energy. You are right that the main focus is not the laser beams but the magnetic fluctuation effect of the magnetic storm laser gun. In physics, there's a physical reaction known as the magnetic shock effect. Although the mech had its anti-magnetic defenses up, it was only effective against a constant magnetic field. For a magnetic field that was created on the machine in an instant, it would cause a temporary malfunctioning of the machine. According to what you said, wasn't the Slayer invincible? Said Old Deer. Hee hee. Old Deer, you are a professional too. Why would you ask such an amateur question? Look at the numerous and complicated manual of the Slayer. The initial designer did have this idea, but it was just not achievable by anyone, Yao Ailun said. This required the attacker to have a deep understanding of the theory of magnetic fields. As this was dynamic and ever-changing, one would have to depend on his monitoring device and make adjustments to his position. As it was not fixed, one would not be able to train for it. How? Did you know? Your brother is from the physics department of the Ares Academy and is a student of Professor Xiao Fei. Yao Ailun said with arrogance and his eyes lit up with excitement. From the freeze frame of the slow-motion video, one could see with his naked eye that when this 5th shot was fired, it was not the collision of the laser with the energy shield but the magnetic resonance effect that struck the Slayer. Solo Wind and others were dumbfounded. What the hell? Even the people from the Arbiter Republic would not have been able to achieve this. How strong was this guy's spatial perception, computing ability, and reaction time to allow him to perform such a feat? The audience was dumbfounded. It was clear that most people would have known about Xiao Fei by now after the numerous news of the prideful scientist from Earth on the media channels. She was a female scientist that had both beauty and wisdom. Wang Zheng was ecstatic. He had long wanted to try it, and it was beyond his expectations that he had succeeded in it. It wasn't until the last of the 3 battles today that Wang Zheng was able to gain something out of it. He had been thinking much about how to put the magnetic resonance effect into practice since the very beginning. This could be considered an occupational disease, and Wang Zheng could not resist the temptation of it. After all, he had been under the influence of Old Merchant over the past decade, so it had become part of Wang Zheng's subconscious psyche. The whole stadium was still filled with loud chattering. It would seem that Yao Ailun's explanation was too theoretical, especially with the use of some technical terms. The number of live viewers had exceeded 24 million quietly, among which were over 500,000 people from Locke. The analytic video of the Super Show appeared in the first instant. From the video, as the shot was fired, a magnetic afterimage was left behind from the collision of the magnetic storm and the energy shield. 3 circles, together with the final 2 overlapping circle, caused the magnetic resonance. Numerous red lines were used to explain the magnetic shock. It was a lesson on popular science. At that instant, it was obvious that the systems on Solo Wind's Slayer had malfunctioned. As one of the disciples of Professor Xiao Fei, I would like to say that if Skeleton was willing to join the physics department, he would definitely be able to achieve something great, said Chen Shu ecstatically. In the last scene, the flag of the Skeleton Corps occupied the entire skyline. At this moment, it had not only occupied the screen but also the hearts of countless viewers. Every match was legendary. This was the rhythm of their god. Yi Zixu blinked her big eyes and pondered. As a mecha designer, it was necessary to not only have a professional team but also a professional mech operator to be able to find out the strengths and weaknesses of the mech. The designer of the current model of Slayer was the famous designer Rondo. The Slayer had the initial potential to be a super mech. In the eyes of an outsider, it was a successful design. However, it was a failure on Rondo as no one was able to notice the true intention of the weapon and utilize it to the best of its ability. Looking at the papers in her hand, Yi Zixu was filled with hope. What would be the results? The audience had given the move used by Skeleton the name of 5-round wall pinning explosive combo. The last scene where one would directly slam the opponent into the wall was truly shocking. The professional players were all doing their research on it. Everyone knew that if one could use such a move in a battle, they would be invincible. However, the difficulty level of it was too high. The recoil force of the Slayer was too strong, and this made control of it difficult. One would also have to get used to the unique aiming method. Although it looked easy, it would be extremely difficult to perform well, let alone create the magnetic shock effect. However, the difficulty did not douse the passion of the people. In fact, it greatly aroused the buying urge of players. Whether they were successful in executing it was one matter, but the decision to use it was another matter. In the world of CT, mechs, especially the high-end mechs, were expensive. If you would like to purchase the mecha of other planets or even galaxies, the price would be even more expensive. Although this was a sales gimmick, Solon looked at the data and realized that 6,073,000 Slayers were sold within 10 minutes. When the current model was introduced, they were able to only sell over 100,000 mecha after expending much effort and did tons of marketing on it. Even after that, most of the users decided to give up after giving it a try for a few minutes. At the same time, more than 3 million people had placed it on their wish lists. Solon was dumbfounded. He was certain that this mech would be left aside after it was bought, as it would have little practical use. The Arbiter Republic's mecha were classified as hard to control with strong performance. However, this was not important as many players of CT were more concerned about having a good time than becoming good at it. Therefore, there were numerous Slayers who brought their teams down. They were competing on who would bring down more teams and have more fun. This was the real meaning of the game. The first 2 matches of Wang Zheng were amazing. However, the influence was limited to the solar system. However, the performance in the last battle was on the trending board of the CT Galaxy video streaming site. There was never an occasion where someone was able to utilize the Slayer to such an extent before. Wang Zheng, where have you been? Zhang Shan continued to talk about the competition process excitedly. It was too awesome. One day I will have such a performance on the IG battlefield too. A real hero is one who dares to show off. Despite having worked part-time in the OMG mecha production and assembly base before, Wang Zheng was still in awe of the highly concentrated, efficient production and assembly process of the farming use mech on the production belt. After the production belt process, the software was installed and hundreds of tests were run on it before it was packaged quickly into the car and delivered to different places. The whole process was seamless and continuous. This was entirely different from the repairs and maintenance department. It was spectacular and shocking. Although they weren't military-use mecha, they still had a powerful visual impact. How did you feel about it? Laughed Yi Zissou. Did you feel that this facility that was used for producing farm-used mecha was okay? It was more than okay, it was amazing, exclaimed Wang Zheng. It was obvious he had nothing to compare it with. He had no idea for what purpose Yi Zissou had asked him to come. Is that the truth? Yi Zissou blinked and wished to listen to Wang Zheng's opinions. It's the truth. Although I have nothing to compare it to, the whole process was well organized and the employees were focused and promising, laughed Wang Zheng. Yi Zissou smiled. OMG had always placed the people at its core. Whether an enterprise would be able to continue doing well depended not only on the ambitions and abilities of the management and the seamless production of advanced mecha, but also every employee's work attitude and passion. I consider you someone who knows what to say. You have passed. Only a pass? What if I had said bad things about it? Do you see that forklift over there? I would have shoved you out of the door. Do you have to be so mean? Yi Zissou brought Wang Zheng to a titanium door. A series of stringent checks were conducted by the system to identify Yi Zissou's identity through retina scanning, DNA, and eventually the activity test before the titanium door was opened. Wang Zheng was a little surprised. For most areas, Yi Zissou would be able to enter by using an access card. The level of security here was no less than that of a military restricted area. In fact, it was beyond that level. OMG's core development base? Is it alright if I enter? Wang Zheng saw the sign at the door and had no idea why would Yi Zissou bring him here. Be careful. Everything inside here was classified as a secret. I will have to silence you if you say anything about this. Yi Zissou is a kind and beautiful person who would never commit such a ruthless act. You clearly know how to bootlick. I have been researching a new mech and this is also the main direction OMG will be heading towards in the future. This is what you have been researching? Wang Zheng was surprised. Yi Zissou gave him a stare. What do you think I've been doing cooped up here? Although I'm not as talented as a certain princess, I have been interested in mecha design ever since I was young. Do you think that I was shopping the whole day during my secondary school days? Life was life, but goals were goals. Wang Zheng scratched his head. This looks pretty amazing. You must let me take a look at what you've been up to. The intention of my father was to start from the lower-end mecha and slowly move up the value chain. However, I felt that the lower-end military-use mecha market has been monopolized and that OMG won't even have a chance. If we're going to do it, we must use the higher-end mecha to open the market and let others witness the strength of OMG's technical abilities. After that, we can move down the value chain. Wang Zheng could understand Yi Zissou's way of thinking. The high-end mecha need not be sold. The main purpose was for showcase and promotion. This would make the introduction of the lower-end mecha relatively easier. However, the problem was whether or not OMG possessed such technical ability. As they spoke, Yi Zissou brought Wang Zheng to an ordinary-looking mech that was on the smaller side. This is the Wind God prototype. Do you have anything to say about it? Yi Zissou smiled. Obviously, we will be working on its appearance next, but we won't be tampering with the style. Wang Zheng scanned through the mech from up to down. I have not tested its performance, so I can't make a comment on it. However, from the appearance, it doesn't look mainstream. A smaller frame would suggest that it belongs to the Light Scout model. However, I noticed that the weapon slot did not have a laser sword, or a long-range sniper, nor a heavy sniper gun. It couldn't be that you are trying to create the same type of mech as the Slayer, right? Yi Zissou smiled and said, "You have a little bit of vision. There would be no purpose in replicating someone else's mech. What kind of abilities did you think a super mech should possess?" "Looks like I'm here to give my opinion today." Wang Zheng laughed. However, seeing that Yi Zissou had asked him seriously, he carefully pondered and answered, "If the purpose of the Wind God prototype was to enter the high-end market, then the most important ability would be instantaneous burst displacement." "Kiki, Zissou, why were you looking at me like that? Clearly, other components are also important on top of what I suggested." Yi Zissou shook her head and sighed. "Sometimes I just have to give it to you. I have spent so many years on my mech design and yet you were able to say it out so casually." Wang Zheng shrugged his shoulders and said, "I was just saying it casually too." "You were completely correct. In this day and age, firepower, energy shields, and other things are not the most important functions for a high-end mech. With instantaneous burst displacement, one could turn the tables of the battle around. In fact, Aslan, the Arbiter Republic, and other strong countries are moving towards this direction. The reason is because of the dominant position of the Atlantis mech. Their instantaneous displacement basically placed them in a position where they cannot be defeated." Wang Zheng also knew that some of Atlantis' high-end mecha were able to warp through space. This was an ability derived from their runic language and their spiritual abilities. No one could figure out how to replicate their abilities, and as a result, the desire to attain such mechanical abilities had formed the basis of future mech development for these countries. The Slayer was also developed based upon such an idea. Regardless, whoever was able to develop a mech with warp capabilities would definitely improve the potential of their own mecha pilots. However, it is extremely hard. This problem has not been solved yet. I heard that Aslan and Atlantis are currently working together. Arbiter has also done their own research and are advancing rapidly. What thoughts do you have regarding this technology?" Zissou's eyes widened as she stared at Wang Zheng. They were like twin moons, bright and vivid. "This is your elder sister's very own original creation. Those fuel tanks at the side of the mech can fill up every 5 seconds, allowing the mech to produce a strong magnetic field in a specific direction, instantly displacing the mech. Coupled with strong control, it will be able to create a pseudo-warp effect. Although it cannot compete with Atlantis version, it is still a lot quicker than the Slayer in terms of burst movement." Wang Zheng was stunned. At this point, he was reminded of the Hammerstone gravitational system. There was a difference between the concepts of these two. Zissou's direction of development was more accurate. It was without a doubt that the actual implementation was a lot more complicated than that. Wang Zheng gave a thumbs up. "Student Zissou, you have broadened my horizons. I can't wait for the day where I can try it." At this point, Yi Zissou was not arrogant. The concept is there. The main issues are about to be resolved. However, OMG's inner circle is not convinced. Even my dad does not plan on fully supporting this project either. This idea is really good. If you were able to implement it, it would definitely bring about a new wave of designs mimicking yours. Wang Zheng was confident in his conjecture. It is too difficult to operate. Most of the piloting tests have ended up in failure. Determining the position the pilot wants moved to requires the use of this telescopic claw. The arm also possesses a function that allows it to shoot out and retract back to the mech, so it's not suitable to be equipped with a beam saber. However, the steel claw can possess some form of combat capability. It's also equipped with a conventional laser gun. However, none of this is important. What is important is that although using the positioning device brings about some gravitational force that can be resisted, being able to grasp onto the gravitational orbit produced by the mech's shot-out claw is too difficult. Once the opportunity has been missed, one is unable to instantaneously move. Furthermore, when the claw has been shot out, it also acts as a target for the opponent, Yi Zissou said. The latter part was why the company had opposed the design. It felt as though the design had sacrificed everything for the express purpose of being able to move instantaneously. It was an easy target as well. Yi Zissou only wanted to complain to someone, to chat a bit. She had been under a severe amount of stress and even her confidence had been shaken. Wang Zheng smiled. "Zissou, you don't have to care about what others think. After hearing what you've said, I feel that this idea is very plausible. No new mecha are without faults. However, we can continue to improve upon them, and I believe this direction is the way to go. Success belongs to the ones who persevere. Actually, this was why she had chosen to bring Wang Zheng into the area. She believed that his train of thought was along the same path. What you said is right. I've been too worried about failure. Once I've completed the mech, I want to test it out. Even if it is not approved, it will still be an experience for me. Yi Zissou clenched her small fist. Her doubts completely vanished. Haha. This is the confident Zissou that I know. At that point in time, don't make me pilot an unfinished mech. Wind God. This name is very cool. Of course, you are our school's IG trump card. The company has sourced some military pilots to test our designs, but their brains are too rigid. The problems we are facing cannot be solved by imitating others. If they could, we would be bound by convention. Actually, I have a naive idea. Once the prototype is complete and the patent has been filed, can you place this mech into CT for testing? The large world of Earth possesses numerous individuals with infinite ideas. They would be able to find the largest amount of weaknesses in the smallest amount of time. It might even reap possible benefits. Some mecha can only be used to their full potential in the hands of specific individuals, Wang Zheng said. Yi Zissou's eyes lit up again. Yes, why did I not think of that? I can provide all the technical parameters. The point of this test was to test if the mech was usable. With regards to the technical parameters, it had already been more or less finalized. The mech's key purpose was for war. There were too many mecha nowadays. They could do all sorts of things from running to jumping. However, what was most important was a mech's ability to battle. If it could not fight, it was worth no more than a dog's fart. Yet in a moment, she once again helplessly sighed. It's not possible. CT has never allowed for prototype mecha. Our company spent a lot of money and effort in order to place the Hercules into the game. I don't even think the board would approve of this either. Wang Zheng thought about it and, looking at Yi Zissou's helplessness, silently came to a decision. Everything he had seen and heard of today were OMG's most closely guarded secrets. Yi Zissou was definitely under a lot of pressure. If not, she would not have let out such an expression. I can do something about that, Wang Zheng said. Zissou was stunned for a moment, then she suddenly nodded her head. You don't have to look for Aina. This was Zissou's bottom line. Wang Zheng couldn't help but laugh. Looking at the way you said it, it makes me seem like a gigolo. I can do something about this. Do you believe me? Yi Zissou looked at Wang Zheng before releasing a wide smile and nodded her head. So long as the parameters were similar, CT would be able to provide an accurate simulation. The previous business with Norton was just an unexpected windfall for them. Furthermore, this was mainly for them to test the mech. It would also allow for Zissou to iron out some of her concerns with the mech. Additionally, the mech's design was still up for development as it was quite idealistic. It was a pity that the prototype was still in development, otherwise, she would have let Wang Zheng test it himself. Although the company possessed a deep history of producing mecha, agricultural mecha and combat mecha were still quite different in nature. It was due to numerous years of conducting maintenance on combat mecha that OMG had gotten the confidence to dabble in it. Of course, when it came to human talent, they had been developing their own for some time as well. Hence the board was very concerned with their first foray into the combat mecha market. Although Yi Zissou was the future successor, a company was still a company. There were numerous competing interests and everyone was watching each other closely. When he left OMG, Wang Zheng felt extremely happy. He felt that Yi Zissou's idea was extremely well thought out, and he really wanted to try out such a mech. In a generation where ideas were freely expressed, it was still a unique proposition. Additionally, OMG was not seeking to mass-produce it but to showcase their excellent technical prowess and ideas. It was too secretive. Even if the mech had no issues, if it could not attract the attention of people and had no special points, why would anyone want to buy OMG's mecha? From another perspective, Zissou had no issues. What was important was to see the team's strength in engineering. Wang Zheng passed the message to Yan Shaoshu, who immediately patted his chest. Solon would definitely be extremely obedient to his demands. When are you coming back? Are you planning to stay at Anmei's place till the holiday is over? Ah, the holiday is about to end. The good times are over. I will be back in 2 days, and I will bring you a present. Ah, I have to say that Chen Shu's three sisters are extremely pretty, it's unbelievable. Wang Jung felt helpless. This brat would never not think about women. After the two chatted for a bit more, Xiaoshu went to look for Solon. Solon was now an impressive individual. In just a single day's time, the Slayer had brought about a profit of over 10 million Federation dollars in the solar system. Combined with what the viewers had paid to watch the stream, he had earned a tidy sum. Even the main company had sent congratulations. They were extremely pleased with the new chairman's actions and hoped he would continue to be successful. In short, his position was finally safe. Promote a new mech? Solon was shocked. OMG, don't they only produce agricultural mecha? Actually, the fact that OMG wanted to go into military manufacturing was not news. However, this was a different field for OMG and it was just an experiment, hence CT did not pay much attention to it. Furthermore, they only wanted to test the mech on court. There was no precedence for this. However, one had to consider the other party's background. In the past, only Atlantis and Aslan were given preference. OMG could not stand up to such influences. Although OMG was inconsequential, he had to consider who he was dealing with. Skeleton was not someone he could afford to offend. Is that mech ready? Solon asked. To be honest, with his current position, such a decision was no issue. However, no problems could be had. If any problems arose, he would have to handle the consequences, which would be unsightly. There were many enemies, so he had to understand what he was getting into. There are no problems. I just need to know if you will do it. Yan Xiaoshu was not interested in idle talk. He was only interested in passing the message. Although it seemed unwise, this was how business was done. The more one talked, the more questions would arise, and the other party would consider even more carefully. Xiaoshu had already considered the situation. This situation could be handled by Solon and it did bear some risk. However, if he could not do this, then they would no longer be friends. I will do it, Solon said decisively. Thank you, friend. I will remember this favor. Following which, Xiaoshu disappeared. He had to act the part of being an equal. Solon did not feel that that was a problem. He immediately gave a call to the business unit. Prepare a contract and non-disclosure agreement and contact OMG. Tell them that we are willing to accept their mecha and help them with their tests. If they wanted to do this, they would have to show some initiative. Whatever OMG thought would not concern him. What was important was that he was acting on behalf of Skeleton. At that point in time, Yi Zixu was having a business meeting. After receiving Wang Zheng's encouragement, she was determined to strive to the end. It was unfortunate that the atmosphere of the meeting was slightly embarrassing. Yi Bingwen presided over the meeting. Although he was the chairman and the largest shareholder, OMG had also introduced a large amount of foreign capital during their development. Hence he did not control the company completely. Although he possessed the right to operate the company, it was only a few matters. He would also have to consider the ideas of the other shareholders as it was not only his word that mattered. Yi Zixu had explained her reasoning. Yet in the end, the other shareholders were still indifferent. They were very cold to the idea of a little girl sticking her hands in the midst of company affairs. They had hoped that after Yi Bingwen had retired, they would change the chairman and CEO of the company. Hopefully, they would be able to end the idea that OMG was a family-run company. Zixu, we uncles have watched you grow up. Your idea is good, but it's just too idealistic. OMG has to develop and compete in a stable environment. Fine. Even if you have faith in your own designs, CT may not be likely to allow you to do so. Furthermore, why would they help us market it? A company cannot be too idealistic. I feel that the first step should be a simple and straightforward one. We will implement the B program and launch a version of a mech similar to the Bata and attract customers with favorable pricing. It is good for young people to be aggressive and be driven. However, a business isn't just a game. If it fails, it's a fatal blow to the share price of the company. Do not forget that our competitors won't be just standing aside and watching us. Yi Bingwen had been watching all this time. He knocked on the table and said, the company's strategy to develop military-use mecha has been set and the resources that have been poured in are very large. We have no other options but to stick with it. Conservative strategies have been proven to be ineffective. Do not raise it again. The other shareholders smiled. It seemed that Yi Bingwen's prestige was still unshakable. Chairman, since Zissou is so confident, we will definitely support her to the best of our abilities. Hopefully, we will not let everyone down after they put their trust and faith in us. The underlying meaning was that if it failed, he would be held responsible for the failure. The company should not be treated as a game. Dear shareholders, the Wind God series will be the future of mecha developments. I have absolute confidence in it. If this negatively affects the company, I will bear all responsibilities, said Yi Zissou. Yi Bingwen sighed. This brat was still young, but there were things that shouldn't be said. To be objective, the company has always been clear in rewards and punishments. The next step would be to contact court, although there might be some difficulty in working with them. If there's a will, there's a way. Yi Bingwen was aware of it too. This was a good method. On one hand, they could be able to test the competitiveness of the mech and identify any issues. On the other hand, this could also create publicity for them. However, a sweeping glance across revealed that there was not a single person who was willing to accept the task. You have to be kidding. CT was the hottest platform at the moment. For a company that had been producing agricultural mecha and had just begun the production of military-use mecha, testing their new mecha on CT was considered a dream. Moreover, such a favor could only be granted to powerful countries. Rumor had it that Solon was a practical person and that there was nothing that they could exploit for his benefit. Kiki, if Zissou has thought of this method, she must have a solution for it. Let us just sit back and wait for the good news. You're right. There have been many successful youths in the field of business recently. Zissou is someone that is going to lead OMG beyond the solar system. Let's leave this entirely to her. The expression in Yi Bingwen's eyes became sharper. It seemed that this group of people was still unhappy that Yi Zissou had intervened in the operations of the company. However, as the chairman of the board, he would not let them make all the decisions. Just as he was going to say something, the secretary, who was at the side, rushed in. Chairman, there is an urgent mail. Yi Bingwen frowned. Leave it there. He was unhappy that the meeting was disrupted. However, since it was an urgent mail, he still wanted to take a look. Yi Zissou stood up at this moment. I will be responsible for contacting court. In fact, I have already done so. Yi Zissou was feeling a little angry. She had always disliked a meeting where people were pushing their responsibilities around. However, she had to attend the meeting as this was part of being in a business. There was a chuckle in the room. At a glance, they could tell that she was a spoiled little girl. Did she really think that she would be given attention just by mentioning the fact that she was OMG's princess? Yi Bingwen stood up and his face showed a sense of immense pride. Court's solar system headquarters has just sent us an invitation. They would like to participate in the testing of the new OMG mech and promote it within the solar system. Zissou has done a great job. The audience went silent suddenly. What was going on? Did the sun rise in the west today? CT had taken the initiative and wanted to be part of it? What the hell? Had Solon taken the wrong medicine or did he not take his medicine at all? Yi Bingwen flipped through the document sent through mail, and at the top of the document was the stamp of court. The other party has sent the draft contract to us. Not only are they willing to promote it, they have even given us relatively attractive terms. Brat, when did you learn to surprise us so much? OMG was just a company that produced agricultural use mecha. An image of Wang Zheng's evil smile flashed past Yi Zissou's mind. Could it have been him? The shareholders' meeting ended well. A group of shareholders was gossiping endlessly about what had happened and couldn't help but feel that this matter was really unbelievable. Disregarding them, even Yi Bingwen had lots of unanswered questions. This was because he knew that this was not something that he had done. In fact, even if he wanted to, it would likely be rather troublesome. The main issue was whether OMG was able to provide what the other party needed. To have such terms was impossible. Seeing her father's puzzled eyes, Yi Zissou shook her head and said, I have a friend who said he would do something about it, but I will have to confirm if it was really him. However, the sweet expression on her face betrayed her. Yi Bingwen had a similar experience in the past. He touched his daughter's head softly and said, if there really is a friend, do introduce him to your father. Rest assured that your father is absolutely open about it. I will not look at his family background and will definitely support you as long as he has good character and you like him. This was not a bluff. Yi Bingwen wasn't someone who emphasized the importance of a person's background. If it was up to him to recommend someone, he would also be able to recommend a few outstanding guys. There weren't many within his social circle that had a bad family background. However, the most important thing in a relationship was mutual affection. Although OMG wasn't a big company, he would not resort to exchanging his daughter's relationship for anything. He was definitely one of the better few within his social circle. Moreover, as for the other party's ability, he believed in his daughter's taste. Earth, European region. A certain fat man was struggling to survive in his dire straits. Grr, who still dares to say I can't do it? Vroom. An Avalon half-beast mech was maneuvering through the complicated landscape, dodging the laser attacks coming from all directions. The Avalon prototype mech was widely considered to be one of the hardest to operate mecha in the solar system. In its centaur mode, operating 4 legs with a pair of hands was not only uncomfortable but also complicated. Under the control of Luo Fei, it seemed so natural. In fact, he had broken several operating records. Obviously, this came with a price. In the maintenance room, there was a total of 3 Avalon prototype mecha that were completely damaged and waiting to be repaired. Simulation exercises were child's play. Over here, there were real swords and guns being brandished. However, what the fatty felt was that his strength was rising quickly. He had completely changed over the summer vacation. Damn, if those opponents from the past were to appear before him now, he would completely defeat them. However, this came at a massive price. The fatty had slimmed down. Was there hell in this world? If one was to ask the fatty before the summer vacation, the answer would definitely be a laugh followed by an insult if one was crazy. As for now, the fatty would answer yes with tears streaming down his face. As of now, even the hardest Avalon prototype mech from the mech vault was mastered. In other words, the retreat was complete and he had been able to master great skills. Not bad. Li accepted the results of the fatty's training and nodded his head. Seeing that Li had given him a nod, Luo Fei's eye lit up. It was time for enjoyment. Li had promised him beautiful women and various unimaginable services. The real summer vacation was finally going to come. Give me your self-assessment, said Li. For the summer vacation, Luo Fei answered with confidence, I'm undefeatable. Li took a glance at Luo Fei and let out a smile. The summer break is ending soon and you have achieved the objectives of the training session. Are you thinking of having a good time now? Luo Fei nodded forcefully, unable to hold back his desire for the summer break. Beaches, beautiful women, saunas, and visiting prostitutes. Nothing could be missing. Boss, you really understand me the best. Great, one last mission and you will get whatever you wish for, said Li calmly. Fatty's face sank quickly. He knew it, however, he believed in what Li said. If he said that it was the last mission, it would really be the last. Boss, you said it. Can I really have what I want? What about beautiful women? I'm talking about those with status. Fatty could barely hold back his saliva. What about the female actor in the wallpaper at the head of your bed? As long as you can complete the mission, you can do whatever you desire to her, Li said calmly. The motivation was too great, however, it also meant that the mission Li was talking about would definitely be dangerous. After considering for a while, Luo Fei decided to go for it. Boss, my life is yours now. I promise you and I will go for it. Half an hour later, a strategic airship took off from the warehouse. After 2 hours, it had crossed Africa, the Indian Ocean, and entered the deepest part of the South Pole. Distance from the destination, 50 kilometers. The notice from the pilot sounded within the air cabin. Luo Fei blinked and looked down from the windows of the airship. A snow-capped snowfield. Could it be that Li wanted him to train in real battles in snowfields? It didn't seem too difficult. The snowfield environment was clearly a place where he could demonstrate his strength. A holographic display popped out from Li Skylink. A strategic map appeared in front of Luo Fei. Explanations were given about a base hidden within the snow as it appeared within the display. At the same time, there were subtitles to explain. This was the secret base of the Houston organization. There was a total of 3 levels. Grade A. AI bodyguards. 8 mech warriors were deployed in the first level. 6 mech warriors in the second level. 12 mech warriors in the third level. Following which was a detailed explanation about the base, the structure of the landscape and etc. The screen flashed and was switched off. Li Er introduced it calmly, "Your mission is to destroy this base." Luo Fei's jaw dropped. If it was only grade A AI bodyguards, it would be all right. However, there was also a large number of mech warriors. Was this a mission or a suicide run? Can I not go? What I mean is to let me practice a little more. A simulation battle. Let me simulate the battle 2 times. No, once would be enough. Let me simulate the battle once before I come again? What do you think? Li Er gave Luo Fei a smile as he looked at him. Luo Fei was starting to regret it. Why did he boast about mastering his great skills in front of Li Er? He had clearly found trouble for himself. We have arrived at the destination. It's time to start the assault. 3, 2, 1. Boom. The airship accelerated suddenly and emerged from the clouds. The exterior anti-detection invisible plates were opened and the laser beams were charging rapidly. Intense sirens sounded throughout a base 5 kilometers away. However, it was too late. In the blink of an eye, the flash cannon of the airship blasted towards it. The surface was scorched off, revealing the underground space below the base. At the same time, a mech flew out from the strategic airship and landed in the gap created by the flash cannon. Inside the mech, Luo Fei's entire body was shaking. He couldn't tell if it was because of fear or other factors. Sounds of explosions within the base continued to spread from one end to the other. After landing, the mech staggered slightly. Even a perfect simulation wouldn't feel as rewarding as a real battle. Boom! Another mech fell as it suffered a headshot. What was surprising was that compared to the time in training, this entire battle felt much easier. Luo Fei's body started to shake more intensely, however, it wasn't because of fear but excitement. Mecha were appearing from all directions and they started to surround Luo Fei. When the bullets rained down, the world in Luo Fei's eyes changed instantly. Also, something deep in his heart had awakened. As he licked his lips, Luo Fei pounced out. Rumble. Endless explosions spread throughout the base. Outside the base, the airship had turned invisible once again and was currently floating around the airspace above the base. Lear was watching the battle from the camera installed on Luo Fei's mech. The old butler appeared behind him silently. "Master, wouldn't we be alarming the enemies by doing this?" The Houston organization was one of the few remaining competitors of the Kronos family on Earth. After preparing for such a long time, it was time to lure them out. Lear said calmly. Before devoting all his energy into IG, he would have to clear out some of these competitors. From the camera on the mech, the AI bodyguards were falling one after another under Luo Fei's attacks. The third level had been crushed. The last mech was nailed to the wall by Luo Fei using a titanium knife. Grr. Mission accomplished. The beauty is mine. Luo Fei growled angrily. Both of his hands were shaking. He had exceeded his limits. He had executed highly intense attacks in a short period of time and even had to use his ability X. He was truly putting his life on the line. This mech was really easy to use in a one-on-one match. Even if the opponents weren't that strong, with enough numbers, they could still overwhelm him. He would have to keep a low profile from here onwards. Suddenly, the floor of the third level opened up. A huge flight of stairs could be seen. Below that, there was still a fourth level. Rumble, multiple mech warriors were rushing out. The fatty was dumbfounded. What the hell? He was seeking death to run into them. There was only one option, run. On the airship, the old butler's face changed immediately. Mistakes in intel. Lear jumped into a mech and rushed out immediately. Boss, run. Why did you come out? They outnumber us. I will guard the rear. Before he could complete his sentence, Lear had already rushed past him and towards the enemies. The fatty stared blankly at the commotion that ensued. 10 minutes later. The fatty's face was white as sheet and he was stuttering. That fearsome ability. Lear, were you really a human? The area was filled with wreckage and debris. This was the might of a lofty king. The might demonstrated was the real strength of Lear. As the summer vacation was coming to an end, the winner would be revealed soon. A week later, a certain movie celebrity was standing in front of Luo Fei. The fatty was drooling in excitement. The lady winked at Luo Fei flirtatiously. He thought to himself, you have to service this fatty well. Miss Masuo, can I have your autograph? said Luo Fei as he opened up his wallpaper. Definitely, after completing her sentence, she quickly signed the wallpaper for Luo Fei. As she bent down, she revealed her fair skin and cleavage that could cause one to have a nosebleed. The fatty took a glance and couldn't help but tremble. He had really benefited a lot from this training. Thank you. I was really so lucky, following which, the fatty ran away with his wallpaper in his arms. Masuo was left dumbfounded. What was going on? Was he a country bumpkin? So this was what Luo Fei meant when he meant that he could do whatever he desired. On Mars, Rastan had finally completed the alliance discussions with Lai Guang and Lai Xin. Now that things were done, he was no longer in a rush. Lai Xin was really adept in winning over the hearts of others. Using the charm of a girl, the three of them were acting like close friends soon after. At the invitation of Lai Xin, the three of them arrived at the Fallen Paradise for a tour. One couldn't say they had truly visited Mars if they had not visited the Fallen Paradise. The violent and barbaric battles of life and death would be considered illegal in other places of the solar system because of how openly violent it was. However, on Mars, it was just as popular as basketball. The Fallen Paradise of Mars wasn't just a single place. They were differentiated by the size, scale, and level of competitiveness. The place that Lai Xin and the other two came to was the largest Fallen Paradise on Mars. The level of standards and intensity of the cage fights were of the highest level on Mars. The live match commentator was screaming excitedly. Fei Z, the defending champion with a 28-match winning streak. He is our new king. Worship him. He is the one who conquered the goddess of victory. Boom! A hole appeared on the ground of the secured cage formed by laser beams. A gear-type mechanism with a strong retro atmosphere revealed a deep dungeon stairway. A heroic and brave man stepped out of it. Half of his body was covered in armor. However, this armor was directly embedded in his body. It would be more appropriate to classify this armor as something that was growing out directly from his body. This was a reinforced cyborg. They were created with medical technology intended for the treatment of disabled individuals. The technology was used to reinforce the strength of one's body by grafting his skeletal structure with metal, improving one's ability to take hits, strengthening muscles, and increasing strength. Obviously, this would come at a huge price. For example, one would suffer from a shortened lifespan. There were also other considerations. Such treatments were banned in many countries, but it seemed that it wasn't a problem on Mars. The final form would be just like the warrior standing in the laser cage. The armor on the body was directly embedded into the skeletal structure of the person. The armor could be considered as part of his body and skeleton structure now. The edge of the armor was sharpened to be as sharp as a knife. Grr! Fei Z, the scene seethed with excitement instantly. Numerous people's eyes had turned red as though they were sharks that had detected blood. The words, Fei Z, were synonymous with the smell of blood. 28 consecutive victories with every match filled with blood and flesh. The old rules, an appetizer and warm-up for the Demon Lord Fei Z. Boo boo, a warm-up match. No, what they wanted to see was blood being spilled, not just a performance. The passionate crowd was a symbol of the fiery nature of the Martians. Fiery like a burning flame, fiery like an explosion, fiery and direct. The host waved his hands and roared, "Do you think that I would let any trash enter the sacred battlefield? No. His opponent is a mutated bear from Giverly, an extremely fierce and brutal beast. It has the instincts of a demon from hell and is a horrifying killer. It will rip apart any moving thing in front of it. A kind reminder from the forests of Giverly. If you have a gun and encounter a mutated bear, never run away. You should just blow your brains out, or you will be torn into pieces." Boom! Another hole opened up on the other side of the cage. A 4-meter-tall giant bear rushed out of it. The floor was shaking tremendously. The giant fangs and teeth brought fear under the light of the sun. The eyes of the giant bear revealed hunger, and this made it even more dangerous. Boom! The surroundings were overwhelmed by the sound of the roar. Rumors of the mutated bear had been lingering around. It was a fearsome beast that could go head-to-head with a fast-moving truck. No matter how strong Fei Z was, he was still a human. Was this really just an appetizer for his warm-up? The mutated bear pounced towards FaZe, swinging his razor-sharp paws. 4 meters against 2 meters, an absolute advantage in terms of build. The strength of the mutated bear could even crush a truck in just half a minute. However, FaZe did not move. With a dull face, he raised his hand and was ready for a head-on confrontation. Boom! FaZe had both his arms piercing the chest of the giant bear. At the same time, the metal paws of the giant bear landed on the shoulders of FaZe. Was this a double knockout? No, gotcha. Blood was gushing out from the front of the bear like a fountain and its intestines and stomach were ripped out. As for the FaZe, his body sank slightly, the heavy blow from the giant bear was entirely withstood by him. Grr! The crowd instantly went crazy over the fresh blood. Unexpectedly, the strength of FaZe was way above that of the giant bear. With a series of punches, he was able to smash the giant bear onto the floor. The bear was capable of sending even a truck flying, and yet now it lied down sluggishly on the floor. FaZe raised both of his arms and asked the audience, "Live, or die, 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 die." Rastin was feeling a little surprised that there was even an Ability X user here. Such things would never occur in the Republic of Karagal. Indeed, the space city really lacked such confident and domineering individuals. At this moment, there was a knocking sound coming from the door of the cabin. A middle-aged man walked in with a smile. "Nice to meet you, Miss Lai Xin. Young Master Lai, it has been a long time since you came over to play. FaZe is a cyborg that can use Ability X. Young Master Lai, would you be interested in having some fun?" The middle-aged man blinked as he invited Lai Guang for a battle. This wasn't simply because Lai Guang was from the Lai family, but because Lai Guang was pretty famous in the Fallen Paradise. Obviously, if the opponent was not strong, he wouldn't have been interested. However, a cyborg with Ability X was enough to arouse his interest. If Lai Guang agreed to the fight, it would be absolutely explosive. Lai Guang from the Lai family, the legendary 100 Victory King, against the invincible rookie. The gambling market would definitely soar to a crazy astronomical figure tonight. Lai Guang smiled. "Kester, are you thinking of using me for opening a gambling market again? Alright, I will bet 100,000 on myself to win." "Kiki, it looks interesting. Let me go and have a try," said Rastin with a smile. Kester felt a little surprised and smiled. "I have forgotten to introduce myself. I'm Kester, the one in charge of this place. Kiki, looking at how you dress, I believe you aren't a Martian. You might not be too familiar with the Fallen Paradises on Mars. They're slightly different from the other places. If you were to get injured, I wouldn't be able to bear the responsibilities." Although he was courteous, the underlying message behind his faint smile was that of, "Even if you are a guest of the Lai family, there won't be anyone who would give you an advantage out there. It would be best if you did not cause trouble for us." Rastin's smile deepened. "Boss, if he can injure and cause me to bleed, you can just consider it my loss. Let's just wage $1 million. Kester was delighted and said, "You are a precious guest of the Lai family. If I were to win your money, I would probably be killed by young Master Lai. Let's just wager on 100,000. An impromptu challenger can surrender and seek protection. If you cannot hold on, please do not be stubborn and surrender." Kester had seen many guests with such confidence that had come to Mars for a tour. They might have looked ferocious and vicious on the outside, but their strength was mediocre and they were mainly all bark and no bite. When they entered the cage and realized there was no way out, most became desperate. 9 out of 10 of them were unable to exhibit even 30% of what they said they were capable of. This was an issue of experience. Similar to the performance data of a mech, information could be further separated to theoretical data and practical data. Rastin smiled, got up, and entered the field immediately without even changing his clothes. Who was this? The host was puzzled. At this moment, his boss was explaining the situation to him through his Skylink and his eyes flashed. "Haha, here comes an impromptu challenger that everyone has been waiting for." "Boo," the audience greeted the announcement with hisses. What kind of impromptu challenger was he? This man looked ordinary. Wouldn't this be a waste of their time? FaZe squinted at Rastin. The underlying message behind the term, impromptu challenger, was that as long as he did not kill the challenger, it would be fine, even if it resulted in the challenger becoming handicapped. You have 3 seconds to admit your defeat. Rastin smiled and rebutted, since you gave me 3 seconds, I shall give you 3 moves as advantage. Fei Zi focused his eyes. Once 3 seconds were up, Fei Zi took huge strides towards Rastin. The high-speed punch caused the wind within the cage to howl. A combination of power and speed. This move was already imbued with his ability, and the armor on his body was shining with shimmering light. Fei Zi did not hold back on his killer move. This was what the fallen paradise on Mars was all about. No matter who it was or what was their social status, one would have to face the threat of death when they entered the cage. Only the fittest would survive here. Is he trying to hand me the victory on a silver platter? Die, die, die. The Martian was growling. Rastin grinned and did not dodge, nor did he take up a defensive position, he was just standing still. Was he really going to hand Fei Zi the victory? How could it be? Bang! A large noise propagated across the field. The heavy blow from Fei Zi smashed directly onto Rastin's chest, right on the position of where the heart was. Under normal circumstances, considering Fei Zi's strength, his fist would have pierced through the flesh and the bones would be crushed. However, at the moment, all Fei Zi felt was that his attack had come to naught. What was going on? Grr! After retreating backwards with fleet footwork, Fei Zi stimulated his ability. With a loud bang, the ability that could crush the mutated giant bear in one move started to be imbued onto the arms of Fei Zi, eventually forming a strong torrent of energy around it. Heavy cannon punch. If this punch were to connect, even steel would be shattered. However, Rastin did not dodge and allowed Fei Zi to land his attack onto his chest. Bang! Rastin was repelled. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps were taken. Yet Rastin was able to firmly stand still. He smiled and said, "It wasn't too shabby, I was able to feel something. One more move, please continue with it." Arg! Fei Zi was enraged and his eyes were bloodshot. Under the stimulation of his uncontrollable ability X, his strength soared exponentially. Fei Zi was trying to increase the strength in his body with all his might. Never was there anyone who could withstand his fist in a direct confrontation. Never. A punch flew forward. Bang! With a huge roar, Rastin's body was slammed backwards. The friction between the ground and Rastin's body resulted in an ear-piercing sound as his body was smashed onto the metal cage. A domineering punch, however, the entire arena was silent. Rastin raised his head gradually. As he flicked away the shrapnel on his body, a grin appeared on his face. Fei Zi was as angry as a beast and his face was contorted in fury. Facing Fei Zi, Rastin took a step forward and finally made his move. Although it might have seemed slow, his every action left an extremely deep impression in the minds of the audience. In reality, Rastin was moving as quick as lightning or a streaking meteor and appeared right in front of Fei Zi. Rastin was still wearing a slight grin on his face, and it was clear that he wasn't injured at all. With a seemingly gentle blow onto the body of Fei Zi, a thunderous bang propagated throughout the arena. Just like a rag doll that was thrown away, Fei Zi was launched off the ground and was smashed into the spaces of the metal cage before dying instantly. It was only a single blow. In the cabin, Kester's mouth trembled and he knew that he had suffered a huge loss this time. Who was this dude? The victorious Rastin played down the victory and bowed slightly towards Lai Xin. Lai Xin and Lai Guang looked at each other. Both of them knew that this was a way for Rastin to show that what he did wasn't just for IG but also for the future. They had a long road ahead, and this was him demonstrating a portion of his might. In fact, this was just a small portion of Rastin's strength. Among the 5 captains, none of them were to be trifled with. Rastin too possessed a ridiculous amount of power. This vacation was very short-lived. Some might have truly enjoyed their summer vacation, while others were doing their preparations meticulously. No matter which side they belonged to, they would have to face a new beginning. Ares College had regained its vitality. Of course, Wang Zheng and his group would have realized that some things had changed. "Good afternoon, seniors, may I know where Building 83 is?" asked a quiet lady dragging a suitcase. Wang Zheng and Zhang Shan were taken aback. Did they just become seniors? It seemed to be the case. Zhang Shan immediately stood in front of Wang Zheng. "Kiki, my junior, which faculty are you from? Come, let me take you there." As he finished his sentence, Zhang Shan took over the luggage of the girl as though it was something natural. I am from the Faculty of Arts. Arts is good. I was once also very interested in drawing. The head of the arts club is a good friend of mine. I could introduce you for direct entry. Just like this, Zhang Shan had pushed Wang Zhen to the side. This was a classic example of hoes over bros. Back in the dormitory, Chen Shu and Yao Ailun had arrived. The two of them seem to have had a good time. Both of them have gained weight. Haha, you seem to have become very tan. Very well, let's continue to fight for the glory of Aries College in the new school term. Brother Zheng, there are a lot of new faces outside. There seem to be a lot of people this time. That's because of your teacher, Xiao Fei. Her appeal is significant. Moreover, there have been signs of revival for our college in recent times, and this would resulted in the large increase in number of applicants, said Yao Ailun. Could it be that they were applying to our faculty? Stupid, the crucial thing here is the school's influence. It was the same for other faculties. Why would you think that everyone would want to enroll into the physics department? Oh, why are we staying in the dormitory at such a good time? Let's us go and welcome the spring that has arrived, said Yao Ailun as he jumped up excitedly. Spring? What spring? It's almost autumn here. Chen Shu was feeling a little puzzled. How could you deny the fact that you aren't stupid? These young and fresh juniors are calling out for us. Didn't you see the pack of wolves outside? If you are any slower, you won't get any. Yao Ailun had already rushed out. Clearly, there were some advantages for seniors when going after their juniors. Yao Ailun was clear that he couldn't handle women who were mature. He would have a greater chance by suppressing his desires and going after the unknowing juniors. Brother Zheng, let's go together. I will give it a pass. Let's just go for it. Do not listen to Brother Ailun. As a senior, helping out the new student is a given. We have nothing much to do in the dormitory anyway. At this moment, the major clubs and societies in the campus had started their advertising barrage. At the MMA club, a huge crowd had gathered, and this was a cause for concern. Meng Tian had decided to make a personal appearance, and the reaction was sensational. Meng Tian was a legendary character in Aries College and the goddess from the officers' department. She had passed the IG competition, was the chairman of the MMA club, and was a legendary Ability X user. However, the guys who entered the military college were all testosterone-loaded individuals. After signing up to be a volunteer, Wang Zheng was holding a direction sign at the entrance. He had become a street sign. Even Chen Shu had thrown away his sign and ran away with another little girl. The other party looked young and was about his age too. This showed that she too was a genius. Yan Xiaoshu was eager to take over his job. Using the words of Yan Xiaoshu, he had become extremely adept at it after a semester of training. To woo these girls was like a walk in the park. However, he had lost the chance to do so at the same time. His thoughts were not able to deceive in May. Why are the signs of our school lying around here? With such a huge sign blocking your face, how could anyone ask you for help? Wang Zheng moved his head away from the back of the sign and saw a bottle of water. That group of conscienceless people left me alone. If I were to leave, there would be no one left to be here on duty. They were responsible for this road junction. With everyone leaving, Wang Zheng would have to stay behind. Yi Zisu was wearing a light yellow dress today. Her slender, long legs were tempting to others and she had her hair tied up in a casual manner. It was quite a scene for Wang Zheng with Yi Zisu just standing there quietly. As the rays of sunlight shone onto Yi Zisu's smile, she simply looked dazzling in Wang Zheng's eyes. Wang Zheng did not stand on ceremony. He opened the bottle and gulped down half the bottle of water. Only Zisu had a conscience. His group of friends had taken advantage of him and left him in the lurch. Was it? It seems to me that I should be expressing my gratitude. I couldn't tell that you had such deep connections, said Yi Zisu as she circled around Wang Zheng. What are you talking about? Was the matter regarding CT resolved by you? Asked Yi Zisu. Wang Zheng had already forgotten about this matter. You were talking about that? It wasn't much of a bother, so let's not talk about it. I have troubled you in many other areas previously. Let's not be concerned with these minor things. So what should we talk about then? Said Yi Zisu. For a young and beautiful girl to say it in a playful tone, even Wang Zheng felt a bit moved. Kiki, we are brothers. Anything that bothers you is a trouble of mine as well. Since you have treated me to a drink, I will accept your thanks, said Wang Zheng. Yi Zisu rolled her eyes at Wang Zheng and said, coward. Bang! Just a few meters away, a boy had walked into a tree while staring at Yi Zisu. He quickly left, feeling embarrassed. Wang Zheng and Yi Zisu looked at one another and couldn't help but laugh. Tell me, how did you convince CT? What kind of influence do you have? Even I will have to seriously consider if I ought to seduce you, asked Yi Zisu curiously. She had thought of many possibilities, however, she could not really understand how Wang Zheng was able to achieve it. This was only possible if Wang Zheng had approached Dana for help. However, she believed in Wang Zheng. When he said he wouldn't, he would definitely not do so. Yan Xiaoshu? It was clear that he did not have such an ability. Other possibilities seemed even more remote. Wang Zheng took a look around and waved to signal Zisu to come closer. This is a secret. Do not tell anyone. Yi Zisu was startled for a moment. If it is a secret, then let's forget about it. Wang Zheng laughed. I am skeleton, so Solon was willing to help me with this small matter. This is a small hobby of mine, and I wouldn't want it to affect my normal life. Other than Aina and Xiaoshu, only you about this. Excuse me, do you know which way is the history department? A boy walked over with his eyes looking at Yi Zisu. Straight ahead, make a left turn and walk about 200 meters before making a right turn and you will see it, said Wang Zheng. Due to the presence of Yi Zisu, people's attention had been drawn to street sign Zheng, who had been neglected by everyone previously. Wang Zheng was skeleton. Obviously, Yi Zisu knew who Skeleton was. Skeleton was the most famous person in the circle of CT with countless fans. His fame was second to none, even when compared with famous celebrities of his time. She knew about Wang Zheng's personality and desires and knew that he would never want such matters to affect his normal life. Looking at the smiling face of Wang Zheng as he answered his junior's queries, Yi Zisu felt touched again. She did not care who he was. What mattered to her was this type of attitude and trust he had. It would seem that everything was fated to occur. Whenever she encountered any problems, she would be able to resolve it inexplicably. She had long felt a strange familiarity when she was watching Skeleton in his competition. Since the incident on the Northern Star, that feeling had grown even stronger. It seemed that wherever she went, Skeleton would be there. She understood it now. Senior, how do I address the other female senior? Does she have a boyfriend? Wang Zheng was taken aback. Would this be constituted as a proper question? Yeah, she is so beautiful. Even if she had a boyfriend, one could still chase after her. Who says you can't score a goal when there's a goalkeeper? Unknowingly, the number of people asking for directions became too large. Were all the current freshmen this aggressive? It had always been seniors going after the juniors and not the other way round. Hello, senior, I'm Zhang Yang. I was mesmerized by you from the very first time I saw you. Would you be my girlfriend? Asked a guy who was still pulling his luggage alone. No one had any idea where he had bought a bouquet of flowers from before he rushed over. The early bird catches the worm. The group of onlookers couldn't help but stamp their feet with anger. They wanted to do the same thing as Zhang Yang but were unable to provide flowers. Brother, do you mind queuing up? You are creating a problem here. Please move to the back. Oh, yes, we have been waiting for such a long time. It isn't your turn yet. Consequently, that particular brother who was holding the bouquet of fresh flowers was pulled to the back of the queue. Wang Zheng didn't even feel like helping out anymore. These people weren't interested in asking questions. They were here to look at the beautiful lady. Yi Zisu gently pulled Wang Zheng's arm. I'm sorry, I am currently chasing this man and won't be considering others. Suddenly, the crowd was dumbfounded. A group of freshmen stared at Wang Zheng blankly. Who was this guy? Wasn't he just the guy who held directional signs? Why would such a dumb-looking guy have any relations with this beautiful lady here? All of a sudden, their thoughts went in the other direction. It seemed that it was the beautiful senior who took the initiative. Was there a mistake? This was truly a waste of heaven's resources? Wang Zheng and Yi Zisu were able to escape after much effort. Yi Zisu was laughing heartily. On the other hand, Wang Zheng was getting a headache. As you said, we are good brothers. More and more people kept giving me flowers, and it was starting to get annoying. So just help me deflect some of these gifts, said Yi Zisu helplessly. Wang Jung shrugged his shoulders helplessly and said, couldn't you just reject them directly? What did you say? Just accept it, said Yi Zisu as she patted Wang Jung's shoulders. Oh. When the prototype of the Wind God mech is out, you can come over for a test drive. At the same time, you can provide your professional opinion on it. Oh, right, I almost forgot about it. Professor Xiao Fei was looking for you. Yan Zisu had forgotten about the official thing she had been assigned to do, as she was happily chatting with Wang Jung. Xiao Fei. Wang Jung had an ominous feeling. In general, Professor Xiao Fei had indulged him too much and hadn't been giving him too much trouble recently. When Wang Jung arrived at the staff office, he realized that besides Xiao Fei, even Ji Yute, Marcus, and a few other professors from the physics department were around too. Such a lineup was a little spectacular and pressurizing. Wang Jung, you have finally come. Come and take a seat, said Ji Yute with a smile. Principal, what is the matter? You can be direct with me. This atmosphere makes me feel quite stressed out. Ji Yute laughed and said, it is not really a huge matter. We have already discussed it between us. I will cut to the chase. We have agreed to this idea under the principle of nurturing talents. Wang Jung couldn't help but shudder. Something wasn't right. Although Xiao Fei was smiling so brightly, Wang Jung could feel a chill down his spine as a wave of cold air gusted across his back. What is the matter, Principal? My memory isn't good nowadays. Ji Yute stood up and said, Student Wang Jung. No, to be precise, you will be Professor Wang in the future. Professor Xiao Fei raised this proposal and the proposal was approved by all the professors from the physics department to appoint you as a guest professor of Ares College. At this point, all the professors had stood up and were clapping. Xiao Fei and Marcus were especially happy about it. Student Wang felt as though he was struck by lightning. How far would this joke go? Let me tell you a piece of good news at the same time. Your application to transfer to another department has been approved. You are now a part of the Mecha department as well. Since you will be guest professor in the physics department, it would be inappropriate for you to remain as a student. Xiao Fei and Marcus were aware that given Wang Jung's foundation in physics, there was nothing for him to learn from the school anymore. Keeping him in the physics department was a waste of time. He was thrown a heavy load that he had to carry at all costs. Wang Jung opened his mouth and was ready to contest the idea. However, he was met with endless congratulatory messages and did not have the opportunity to put up resistance. This matter was settled while Wang Jung was still left in a daze. Soon, Ji Yute and the other professors left, leaving Xiao Fei and Wang Jung behind. Wang Jung was sitting on the chair, dazed and lost. After a while, he finally looked at Xiao Fei, who was smiling. Professor, you can't do this. When did I say that I would like to be giving lectures? All I wanted was to transfer to another department. Student Wang, oh, it should be Professor Wang now. You were able to speak with composure even when you were facing Dong Shuiwu. Giving lectures to students will be a piece of cake for you. As a member of the Ares College, to contribute to your alma mater should be a given. I wouldn't be able to do it. I might be able to solve a problem, but giving a lecture is not possible. Hee, I wouldn't let you be in charge of a lecture on the usual class schedule. What you have to do is give lectures on specific topics. Rest assured, I will also help out. Can I choose not to? Wang Jung wanted to resist a little more. Xiao Fei's expression became very serious and she said, Student Wang, do you think that the decision of the school is to be taken lightly? I'm just trying to put up some resistance. There's no need to resist. Being a guest professor could bring you many privileges. Moreover, I finally convinced the principal to agree to your request for a transfer. Wang Jung looked up to the ceiling. An old fox and another sly fox. In essence, they were just bullying him. Don't act like a young married lady who has suffered a little. As a man, this is an opportunity for you to build a career and make a name for yourself. This is also a challenge for the school as it has broken a rule in appointing you. You will need to give it your best shot too. Come over, Professor Wang. Let us introduce ourselves again, said Xiao Fei as she extended her hand. Wang Jung was feeling helpless. Everything was within the grasp of this demonic lady. Back in the dormitory, raucous cheers broke out. "Brother, you are really awesome. We will have to depend on you in the future," said Yao Ailun as he pounced towards Wang Zheng. "Brother Zheng, you are my idol, it's true. What are you guys doing?" The tangled feeling in Wang Zheng's heart had not fully subsided yet. Zhang Shan smiled and said, "Professor Wang, it seems that you have not paid any attention to the school's official website. As the youngest professor in the history of Ares College, you are famous now." Wang Zheng opened his laptop in a hurry. He realized that the headlining news was about the new guest professor in the physics department, and it even had Wang Zheng's portrait on it. "Oh my, Professor Wang, given our relationship, to receive an A+ each year should be a given. I will leave the consultation to you. Can the two of you stop torturing me? Take note of the word, guest. It means that I am just muddling along. This is a conspiracy. Ji Yute and Xiao Fei's conspiracy. Hee, it's more of a gimmick, but their objectives have been achieved. Ares College will be able to enjoy the limelight within the solar system once again, Professor Wang," said Zhang Shan mockingly. "Well, let's ask Professor Wang to give us a treat today." "That is a given. It couldn't be that you would ask 3 poor students to give you a treat, right?" The 3 people were deliriously happy, while Wang Zheng was speechless and tearful. What was this all about? All Wang Zheng wanted was to have a simple and peaceful life. However, it seemed that it was just too naive of him, considering his achievements. Soon, the news of the youngest physics professor in Ares College spread. Although Wang Zheng was able to achieve some results, the majority of the people would still consider it to be a victory for Xiao Fei instead. To become a professor so suddenly, it was indeed like making a mountain out of a molehill. Some reporters even wanted to interview Wang Zheng. After all, Ares College was one of the top colleges in the Asia region. Even Xiao Fei, who had experienced many spotlights in the past, was not able to achieve the same qualifications. With regards to this matter, the department in charge of educators from the Solar System Alliance was paying significant attention to this. Schools were not free to do whatever they desired. This was especially so for schools under the Solar System Ivy League, where they would have to follow the relevant rules and regulations. As a form of respect to the school, they were mindful to be careful and had requested to sit in for Wang Zheng's lesson. In reality, the educators department had no authority over such matters. However, they had to establish their existence by doing something about the matter. Even if they had chosen not to come, Wang Zheng's first lesson would likely still cause a storm. The professors from Ares College and the major colleges in the vicinity would be likely to attend too. Ares College had been on a decline in recent times. As a military school, there wasn't much breakthrough in the field of mecha. Victories in the first stage of the elimination round and in an exchange competition weren't able to prove much. After all, they had been weak for a prolonged period of time. However, in the field of physics, Ares College was truly able to stand in the limelight. Beijing University was the #1 university if one considered all the different aspects. Their performances in various aspects were top-notch and were in the top 3 of the entire region of Earth. Ares College was more renowned in terms of being a military educator. In other words, if one were to consider every single aspect of the school, Ares College wouldn't be able to be compared with an all-rounded university. That old man, Ji Yute, is simply making a fuss. Instead of properly managing the military school, he is trying to attract the attention of the crowd in other areas, said the director of the physics department, Guo Donglang, in an unfriendly tone. As the heavyweight subject in the field of science and as the #1 university in the Asia region, it was startling that their physics department wasn't able to recruit good students. Among the various middle schools, if one wanted to enroll for physics or mathematics, their first choice would often be Ares College. Damn, were they a military school or a science school? Weren't they clear about their own positioning? Principal Marshall was also aware of these issues. The departments of physics and mathematics held the most important projects of the school and would affect a school's standing. Although Ares College had Xiao Fei, they weren't able to produce many results as a whole. However, the limelight over the past year was able to apply much pressure on Beijing University. However, when the standards were set, if one could achieve it through research, it would also be testament to one's ability. Principal, everyone can see the results we achieved in the field of physics in recent times. However, Xiao Fei's ability to hype things up was really too great. She has even promoted her own student this time. We should make it clear to society that school is a sacred place and not just a place for one to blow their own horn, said Guo Donglang. Guo Donglang was the only council member from Earth in the Physics Council of the Solar System Institute of Science. Due to the fact that the physics department played an integral role in research, Guo Dongliang was able to enjoy the respect from others. However, in the past year, he had almost been forgotten. The Solar System Institute of Science had even considered replacing him with Xiao Fei. This was something he could not tolerate. Were his contributions over the past 50 years all false and worthless? What would the whimsical thoughts of a brat account for? The media had always preferred to follow trends and sensationalized subjects without going through practical assessments. Donglang, our school and Aries College are brother schools. Ji Yute was in a tough position. There is no harm in giving in to them, said Principal Marshall calmly. They should have expended all their resources in recruiting Xiao Fei in the past. However, Guo Donglang wasn't willing to put in all his effort. Clearly, he had other aspects to consider and was afraid that Xiao Fei's arrival would affect his position. Guo Donglang stood up abruptly and said, "Principal, we couldn't just let this go. School is where we nurture the future pillars of Earth. How can we just allow two young people to do as they wish? Just leave this matter to me." "What do you intend to do?" "If he wants to be a guest professor, there will definitely be public classes. I would want to see what this brat, Wang Zheng, can deliver." "Hee, Director Guo, if the other party is indeed without substance, we won't just let it pass. This is also based on the responsibilities we hold towards the student population. The school will support you in your moves," said Marshall. "Rest assured, Principal." Guo Donglang was waiting for those words. What kind of depth and breadth of knowledge could a brat have? They weren't even clear about the relationship between him and Xiao Fei. Guo Donglang was making unscrupulous guesses. Xiao Fei was indeed good-looking. As the thought appeared, Guo Donglang's face throbbed. It was part of a bad memory. Xiao Fei and Ji Yute had no intention to use this matter to create a fuss. If they had some personal reasons to do so, it was to not waste Wang Zheng's talents. A transfer in department was a must. However, if they did not bind Wang Zheng down, the physics department would likely lose a genius in the future. Xiao Fei knew that Wang Zheng was someone who placed much emphasis in fulfilling his responsibilities and therefore had come up with such a thought. However, these thoughts seemed to have gone out of control. Curiosity had resulted in suspicion, which eventually became attention. Together with a group of people with various intentions, a good-intentioned matter had caused a huge fuss. This was something that Xiao Fei and Ji Yute had not wished to see. However, to settle this matter wouldn't be easy. A fortunate thing was that Wang Zheng was calm about the whole matter. Since the matter was set and unlikely to change, Wang Zheng wasn't feeling conflicted. After the buzz died down, there wouldn't be people who would bother him. In addition, he wasn't a full-time professor. Xiao Fei wouldn't have to worry about it. He would definitely execute and complete the whole space project as this was the painstaking efforts of old merchant. It would be difficult for him to give lectures full-time in the long run, but handling a few topics would be a piece of cake for him. Wang Zheng's main focus was still training. He would likely be able to focus better now as he had become an official member of the mecha department. Zhang Shan's breakthrough had increased Aries College's strength exponentially. He had trained harder than Wang Zheng to increase his skills. Especially so for his training on Ability X. His ability was indeed a little over the top. However, any ability would have to be at certain level of strength to be useful, or it would always be a joke. Zhang Shan wanted to show off. He was determined to not be seen as a joke anymore and he wanted to be rid of that horrendous moniker of Mountain Maiden. When the training session ended, Zhang Shan and Wang Zheng sat aside while watching Meng Tian and Zhang run and spar. Their abilities were more mature and they were more at ease when using them. Sparring was also a way to strengthen one's Ability X. Zhang Shan looked enviously and said, "Wang Zheng, I heard from Meng Tian that your ability has already awakened. You just haven't found a way to utilize it?" Wang Zheng smiled and said, "I'm not too sure if it has awakened, but I did feel that I understood a little about it. Recently, I have been making some adjustments." "Oh, damn, why are you shy of in front of me? Show me your ability and let me learn from it." Zhang Shan stared at Wang Zheng. There are still some things that I have not completely understood. It is still unstable now. Let's talk about it another time, said Wang Zheng. Zhang Shan patted Wang Zheng's shoulder and said, we are brothers, I wouldn't ridicule you about it. I heard that your ability is like being a battery pack. There isn't anything wrong with it, it will definitely be useful in a team. Wang Zheng did not know if he ought to laugh or cry about it. Meng Tian and Zhang Runan came over. Meng Tian stuck her tongue out and said apologetically, a slip of the tongue. Don't be discouraged. In fact, in Wang Zheng's case, the focus wasn't about what his ability is but more about possessing an ability X this way. His potential is not limited, said Zhang Runan. Only with a clear understanding of one's ability X would one not make a wrong assessment of the battle situation. If a wrong assessment was made, it could be a terrifying thing. Rest assured, I will not fight with you over the position of captain. You are the dormitory leader of room 007, said Zhang Shan boldly. With your skills, you should just stay in your position, honestly, Zhang Runan retorted without reserve. Sister Nan, please do not be like this. I am also a talent. Why do you all have such a high appraisal of Wang Zheng but not me? I feel discouraged now. I also need some encouragement, said Zhang Shan aggrievedly. Lady Shan, we can talk about it when you use practical actions to demonstrate your manliness instead of just paying lip service. Zhang Runan said calmly with awe. Wang Zheng, if you have any issues with ability X, you can just consult me or Sister Nan. We still have some insight with regards to the theories of awakening ability X, said Meng Tian. Wang Zheng was the strongest point of the team. That was at least the case for the first round. The second round would definitely be a challenge for Wang Zheng. Meng Tian was curious about several aspects too. If Wang Zheng had truly awakened his abilities, why weren't there any major changes? When one's ability was awakened, there would be changes to temperament. Meng Tian's temperament and Zhang Runan's temperament had been affected by the influence of ability X. This was the case for Zhang Shan too, even if he had not realized it. Wang Zheng smiled and said, rest assured, I won't stand on ceremony. Wang Zheng wasn't just having problems with ability X, there was still the second stage of the primordial regression technique. He might lose control easily if he has issues with coordinating his abilities. The three of them did not stay on the topic for too long. After all, their abilities were all very good and Wang Zheng might have had his own ideas too. Xiao Fei and Ji Yute had no choice but to become serious with regards to Wang Zheng's public class. This was due to the fact that the head of the physics department of Beijing University and several of the most authoritative professors in the field of physics would be attending it. This was Wang Zheng's first appearance. If it turned out well, it would be great. If he were to screw it up, it wouldn't just be a problem for Wang Zheng. The reputation of Aries College, which had just seen some signs of revival, would be wrecked. Ji Yute couldn't help but feel anxious about it. However, Xiao Fei was brimming with confidence. Once the time had been confirmed, it was announced through the school's website. The students from the physics department were also curious about the matter. This was especially so for the new students. Most of them had come for Xiao Fei. They might have heard about someone who had received an award for contributions to the university, but they were unlikely to be able to remember the name of the student. But for a second-year student to become a professor, this was basically unheard of. Even the students were curious about it. There were also people from other departments who were around to join in on the fun. There were people coming from Beijing University and the Solar System Institute of Science. They were likely to still be displeased with the fact that Wang Zheng had stood them up on Mars. Who did he think he was? Many students from Beijing University came over too, including some who Wang Zheng knew. For example, Zhao Lingfeng. When he got the news, he became extremely shocked. There weren't any empty seats in a lecture room with the capacity for more than 1,000 people. To have such a crowd in the first lesson, Chen Shu and the group couldn't help but start to feel worried for Wang Zheng. Yi Zisu and the rest of the group wouldn't miss this event. They were the supporting team for Wang Zheng and were anticipating it. From Beijing University, the group of professors with Guo Donglang as their leader was sitting on the first row. Xiao Fei and Marcus were sitting at the side. What is Guo Donglang doing here? Could it be that he is here to create trouble? Marcus was feeling a little surprised. Guo Donglang was considered to be very famous within the scientific circle on Earth. He was able to get along with people well and had some ability. However, his abilities outside the scientific circle were greater. He was occupying various positions of importance at the same time, and Xiao Fei could be considered to be his opponent. Xiao Fei did not have any good impression of Guo Donglang. Although Dong Shuiwu had a problem, he did know his stuff. He was just too focused on achieving fame. However, Guo Donglang was a purely unscrupulous person in the academic realm and was a pervert. He had tried to hit on her a few years ago and received a slap from her as a lesson. Since then, he had become more honest, and it was truly unexpected to see him here looking for trouble. If he is here to cause trouble this time, he will be asking for trouble himself, said Xiao Fei calmly. Marcus felt surprised that Xiao Fei was so convinced. He smiled and said, I'm looking forward to Wang Zheng's performance. The topic for this public class isn't easy. If it was too shallow, he would not be able to please the professionals. However, if it was too deep, the students wouldn't be able to understand it. You don't have to worry about the kid. His strongest ability is to act like a pig to eat a tiger. He knows his stuff. Xiao Fei laughed. Wang Zheng came prepared. The important thing in this type of class was to explain profound concepts in simple terms. At the same time, one should focus on one or two of the hottest topics and present their own personal views, and it would be fine. Moreover, there were some surprises this time. At exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Wang Zheng entered the room. The room that was filled with chatter immediately went silent. Everyone was staring at the impossibly young professor. Wang Zheng was wearing formal clothing today. There was no attempt to hide his age. Even if he wanted to, he wouldn't be able to hide it. What was more important was the way he presented himself to the crowd. Wang Zheng walked towards the podium and looked down at the people below the stage. He had faced multiple problematic situations and had undergone numerous life and death training sessions. However, the current situation was something he did not have much experience with. Even the face-off in Roland Garros felt different from this time. However, such feelings flickered away, and what replaced it was excitement. This was because he saw his old friends. With a smile, Wang Zheng said, "Thank you, everyone, for coming today. I would like to discuss the topics on space." Wang Zheng went straight to the point and did not waste any time talking about irrelevant things. These people weren't here to see what he looked like, they were here to verify his knowledge, to see if he was fitting of the title of professor. As he finished his line, he wrote the topic, General Conjectures of Time and Space in the 13 Dimensions. Suddenly, lots of whispers could be heard from below the stage. What a broad topic. Such a topic wasn't an easy topic to talk about. It wasn't because there was nothing to talk about, but because there were too many things you could talk about it. Moreover, the topic was too broad. This was also something that a physics-loving person would be interested in. It was similar to the theory of relativity 2 generations ago. Everyone knew a little about it, but the amount of people who truly understood it was really few. Guo Donglang grinned coldly. What an ambitious topic. On the other hand, Xiao Fei and Marcus were interested in the topic. They knew about the character of Wang Zheng. If he was serious about it, he would be completely different as a person. They were really interested to learn about Wang Zheng's view in this field. Choosing the question was like drawing a sword. One ought to be accurate and to the point. Looking at the reaction from the audience, they were at least interested in it. In interstellar navigation, what would be considered to be the most important factor? If we were to summarize, there would be many answers. However, in my view, I believe that the most important factor is speed. Our research has always been about how to increase one's speed. No matter whether it is acceleration, warp speed, or the current research on spatial transmission, we have been trying our best to increase our speed. Till now, we have been able to obtain great achievements and humanity was able to occupy a space within the Milky Way galaxy. However, why have we stopped? One of the reasons is that we can no longer keep up with the developments in speed, said Wang Zheng. This was also a status quo that everyone knew. Energy propulsion, spatial awareness, and other related issues had resulted in constraints. When the time and costs spent no longer generated returns, the pace of humanity's exploration had to stop. To solve this problem, energy, materials, and many other things are crucial. However, the most crucial thing is about the understanding of the world. In other words, in the understanding of space and time, We have to rise above the fifth dimension. In other words, we have to surpass the understanding of the secondary dimensions. This is the end point. Let us talk about the differences of the 13 dimensions first, and I have some new viewpoints regarding it. Once he started on the topic, it was as though Wang Zheng was immersed in the time where he could talk about anything after dinner with Old Merchant. Over the past decade, Old Merchant had left behind the research he had been doing. This had allowed him to achieve peace and calm. In those decades where he was completely immersed in the devilish research of the secondary dimensions, it was like he was on a blind goose chase. He had approached a dead end. After he was able to calm down, Old Merchant was able to find more time to think, to fully understand a concept. Letting go could also be for the sake of truly attaining it. To attain something, sometimes one ought to be ready to discard the idea first. Old Merchant was already many generations ahead previously. After gaining back his composure, his understanding of the theory on the 13 dimension was able to reach a higher level. Wang Zheng was the only person he could share his views with. Therefore, the worldview that Wang Zheng obtained was different from that of the masses, and the explanation of complex concepts that were built on these worldviews seemed to be less difficult. Just like how one would solve a question, not many would approach it from the fundamentals and derive the complex ideas needed to solve it. As Wang Zheng spoke with confidence and composure on the stage, those that were sitting in weren't paying much attention. They felt that the topic was for the purpose of attracting attention. No matter how one spoke about it, it was more of a gimmick as there wasn't any practical point in it. However, in reality, what Wang Zheng had described about the 13 dimension was very different from the mainstream idea about the theory of 13 dimensions. In my opinion, we should see parallel universe as yet another dimension. Parallel dimensions could influence one another and cause constant changes. The changes could result in other parallel dimensions. In other words, there might be countless universes. To make a bold conjecture, the 14th dimension could exist, which summarizes the 13 dimensions, and everything would become relative. Wang Zheng had explained everything in a common way, so the students present were able to understand. This was because, just like what Wang Zheng had said, everything was just a conjecture. Conjecture wasn't the same as theory. It could be true or it could be false and hadn't undergone verification. However, conjecture could also be classified as one that is logical or illogical. No one had thought about it before. The 14th dimension? This wasn't like the addition learned during mathematics of primary school students where +1 was equivalent to +1. In the face of enthusiastic discussions below the stage, Guo Donglang could no longer hold back. What was he saying? The 14th dimension and influences between parallel dimensions and connections were all simply radical ideas. As for the idea of a parallel dimension, that would mean that there would never be any connection. As they stayed parallel forever, they would never intersect. Guo Donglang stood up suddenly and pointed straight at Wang Zheng while saying, "A load of nonsense. What is the 14th dimension? There should be a limit when all you want to do is to attract attention. Do you have a theoretical basis? If all you are depending on is your gut feeling and you say whatever you feel like saying, that is an insult to the academic field. Little brat, please do not forget about everything else once you have achieved a little result. The pursuit of knowledge requires time and attitude. How old are you? What have you experienced to have the guts to say that you are enlightened? In addition, Aries College is an Ivy League school. How could you allow this guy do whatever he wants? This is a criminal offense." Guo Donglang was clearly indignant. His voice was loud and clear and propagated through the room. When everyone was discussing the feasibility and span of the conjecture, they were shocked by the thunderous voice of Guo Donglang. Who was this? Why was he so pissed? One should know to be not so direct when confronting someone. Whether or not the conjecture was reliable, there should be room for discussion. Why would this guy directly refute and reject the conjecture? The crucial thing was that Wang Zheng was able to explain it in an interesting way and that it was logical. If it was a conjecture, it made sense. It was just that the breadth was a little wide and it did sound like a fantastical idea. Xiao Fei and Marcus could be considered to be at the forefront of the field. The two of them were mesmerized by the topic, and this could be the crucial stage that would allow them to achieve a breakthrough of the third stage. Just when he thought he had made sufficient preparations, Wang Zheng found himself stuck in a bottleneck. The problem of having a broad worldview. When they were waiting in anticipation for the surprise Wang Jung would continue bringing, this monkey had jumped out unexpectedly. He had even insulted the school at the same time. Guo Donglang's act was good. All that was missing were tears and weeping. As someone who has been in the physics community for a long time, I came here with great hopes to give encouragement to the younger generation. However, what have I seen? A show and discussion about the 13 dimensions? Those are the hardest questions in the field of physics, and no conclusions have been made for several centuries. How could you just overturn the views of those who came before you so recklessly? Where is the respect for those who came before you? Guo Donglang was fuming with anger. A group of students was startled by the situation. They found Guo Donglang familiar as he was a well-known figure on Earth and frequently appeared on the TV. Professor Guo is right, we are here to learn. Please do not fudge the issue, shouted someone from the crowd. After shouting, Zhao Lingfeng immediately tried to hide. He had made the right choice coming here this time. The audience suddenly felt that something did seem amiss. If one purely listened to Wang Jung and was not interested in the proof that underpinned the theory, it would seem to be as he described, completely sensible. However, if one were to think about it carefully, these theories had no theoretical basis. It was just a conjecture, and yet they were giving applause. To be direct, it was just like telling a story. It seemed that there was a loss of control of the situation. Guo Donglang was maintaining his serious face. Professor Xiao Fei, there should still be a limit if you are trying to raise your students. If you try to push it, you will only be harming him. You should have done it in steps instead of rushing it. Guo Donglang said righteously while his sights were on Xiao Fei's chest. However, Xiao Fei was calm, which wasn't normal. Marcus knew that Xiao Fei did not have such a good temper, especially when facing such matters. What was happening today? Wang Jung, who was on the stage, kept a smile on his face despite the torrential insults from the other party. Gentlemen, please keep your calm. It is common to have debates in academic discussions. What I did just now was give my own views on the matter. As for now, we shall invite our guests up for a deeper discussion regarding the theoretical basis behind the conjecture, said Wang Jung as he shifted his sight to the audience. There were other guests? There were other guests? Marcus was startled for a moment. Could it be that he would be inviting Xiao Fei and him to the stage? If that was the case, Wang Jung would have definitely informed him in advance, as the current topic wasn't something that he was good in. Xiao Fei grinned and extended her hands. Let us welcome Professor Mu Fengchun, Professor Gale, and Professor Alvin.